The Nigerian Communications Commission has introduced a new licensing framework aimed at boosting innovation and expanding access for startups and tech-driven firms in the telecom sector. Disclosed at a stakeholders forum in Abuja, the framework includes key tools such as proof of concept pilots, a regulatory sandbox, and interim service authorization designed to support emerging services not covered by current regulations. Executive Vice Chairman Dr. Aminu Maida highlighted the need for responsive regulation that enables experimentation while safeguarding consumers. The initiative seeks to align with digital economy policies like the Nigerian Data Protection Act and National Broadband Plan. NCC officials said global best practices inform the design with the aim of strengthening investor confidence and supporting sustainable telecom growth in Nigeria. Tajudeen Ibrahim, Director of Research and Strategy at Chapel Hill Denham Securities, joins me now. Good morning, sir. A pleasure. So how would you describe and what would you identify as the significance of the NCC's new general authorization framework for startups and the telecom innovators in Nigeria?
I think it is a step in the right direction, considering the fact that it has a lot of positive elements, particularly when you consider the three key areas that they are looking at around novel solutions to market and economic challenges that can be solved, using technology. Interestingly, also we are looking at sandbox, which is a situation where new products are tested within a very small cycle of users before they are eventually launched. And I think the fact that there is an element of interim service authorization in the entire framework is a welcome development, because my sense is that that will allow for quick launching. It will also remove the element of delayed approval of great ideas that can make positive changes in the telecommunication or technology industry in Nigeria. So I see the entire framework as a welcome development, and I believe that it will lead to a lot of positive impact when we look at economic impact from that standpoint. So there are a couple of interesting things also around it, and I think one major interesting factor for consideration is that before the NCC came up with this framework, they had researched other countries, such as the UK and also Singapore, for instance, to really be able to learn about how they have been successful in growing their their tech industry, and some of the strategies that had been adopted by those two countries, for instance, are going to be implemented also in Nigeria. So I think the future, to my mind, is bright in that regard.
And I guess it puts us in a competitive position. Regulatory Sandbox, that was also introduced by the NCC. How do you see that helping in de-risking new technology deployments like Open RAN and spectrum sharing?
So when you have a regulatory sandbox, what it does is that it allows for a situation where your product is tested within a very small cycle, because there are a lot of risks that are associated with new product. One of such is sustainability, because when you initiate new product and you don't test them within like a small circle of users, you really may not be able to tell in terms of the impact that huge users, a lot of users would have on the ability of that products to service a higher number of users. So testing it within like a small circle of users is a very good one, because number one, it will help to identify, some of the glitches that such a product would have. It will also help to identify quick areas of development, and if all of those areas are already identified, then the developer of such products can go and work on them before they are eventually launched into the market for a wider array of users in the country. So I think this is where it is very important, and it will also allow for a testing of the reliability of such a product. When you have put in place all of these elements and you follow them through to the last, the risk of such products collapsing after launch is very minimal, and you will expect it to be of use to Nigerians and the public over a longer period of time. And any major feedback that the promoters are receiving will just require them to do like a minimal upgrade versus a major upgrade that could lead to like a complete shutdown of that product. I believe this is where the regulatory sandbox is very important.
Mm-hmm. Let's come to another element of this flexible licensing framework that has been introduced, the proof of concept pilot scheme. Do you see this truly accelerating product testing, but at the same time not compromising consumer protection?
So consumer protection, to my mind, should not be compromised, because it is the consumers eventually that will use these products, and if consumers are not protected, then it means that you are exposing the public to risk, not just risk of financial risk, but it could be other sort of risk that you are exposing consumers to. But when we take a look at the proof of concept pilots, I believe that it speaks around new solutions in the real world, understanding how new solutions will solve real world problems, and also giving credit to the promoters and innovators of such products that are coming to the market. When you have all of these elements in place, what it implies is that you are, as a country and as a government, you are encouraging more innovative products to be brought to the market. You are encouraging more young Nigerians, because when you look at the tech industry, what you find there are largely speaking players that are young and talented Nigerians. So when you have this kind of arrangement in place, what you are doing is that you are encouraging a lot more young and talented Nigerians, and eventually you are in that regard creating jobs for more Nigerians, particularly those that are talented. You are allowing them to have an enabling environment for them to be able to carry on their businesses. So to my mind, all of these elements are positive, and they should have positive impact on the users of the product over the medium to long term.
All right, so it sounds optimistic, but we know that we have the Data Protection Act and Broadband Plan. How do you see this particular framework aligning with Nigeria's broader digital economy policies?
Digital economic, having a digital economy is a major thing that I believe the current administration is really focused on. And I believe that, for instance, what we have now in terms of this regulation and regulatory framework is a step in the right direction, as it should support what we are targeting as a country in terms of lifting the current status of the country from a digital economy standpoint to a much stronger one. When you look at Nigeria, Nigeria's economy in terms of digital and the digital infrastructure. And I think, if you look at the overall economy, the ICT sector, for instance, accounts for about 13 to 15% of the Nigerian GDP. And it means that if efforts are directed around allowing for a much stronger growth via regulation, via targeting an improvement in the usage of the internet, via working around ensuring that the infrastructure, the state of infrastructure in the industry is improved, what you would see over the medium to long term is that, number one, you are going to see more investors being interested in the sector. They could be interested via debt. They could be interested via equity. They could also be giving out grants to players in the industry, and that, over the medium to long term, will underpin the growth of the digital economy and the broad economy as a whole. Let us put it in context. In 2024, last year, for example, about $466 million flew into Africa in the first quarter of last year in form of capital, in form of equity, debt, and grant capital to Africa in the tech industry. And guess what? 23% of that inflow, about $110 million, came to Nigeria. So we had that kind of a development largely because the government remains supportive of the industry by ensuring that the state of infrastructure improves, by ensuring, more importantly, that regulations are up to date and regulations are flexible. So, and I think over the medium to long term, Nigeria can see a lot more investment inflows into the sector if we get all of these things right, particularly speaking to regulation, in my view.
I mean, who doesn't like the sound of that? More investment inflows. But we know that it's also very important, and it'll be interesting to hear how players, are reacting within that sector, are reacting to the introduction of this framework, and also how critical is stakeholder collaboration, especially amongst mobile operators, OEMs, and the civil society, so that it will ensure the success of this framework.
The players in the industry are viewing it as a positive development because collaboration among them is very important, because this is not a situation where industry players are seeing it as a field for competition. It is more like a field for collaboration. And when you collaborate as industry players, you are creating an enabling environment for growth. You are creating an ecosystem where each and everyone as an industry player benefits from all of the economic impact that this can lead to. So I expect the giant players in the industry, when we talk about the big tech companies and the medium to small players in the industry, to be collaborative in terms of the way they work, because no one can win the entire market. You only can take your own share of the market, and you have the other share of the market being available for other industry players to take advantage of. And when industry players see this as an opportunity to collaborate and ensure that the entire ecosystem improves in terms of growth opportunity, then we'll be talking about even a bigger and a larger technology industry. And when we have a larger tech industry, what it means also is that it is a larger market share for each player in the industry. So my view is that they are positive around the development, and they are expected, in my view, to be collaborative in that regard for a better benefit for each one of them over the medium to long term.
Indeed. And finally, Tajudeen, what does this shift towards more responsive regulation mean for Nigeria's competitiveness, especially in the global digital economy?
So you will find a situation where we take a look at the global environment. We will find a situation where global investors are looking around to see where can they invest, particularly when you are talking about frontier and emerging economies. They are looking for where can they invest. And one of the key factors that they consider as investors are flexible regulation, a situation where the ease of doing business for them in that country is very high, not low at all. So if the ease of doing business for them in Nigeria, for instance, in the tech is high, then it means that they'll be a lot more interested in coming down to invest in Nigeria. And when you talk about flexibility, what it means is that you are not unnecessarily rigid as a regulator, and when you are that flexible and you listen to even industry players as they offer advice around how you can make the industry better and attract more investors, then you of course will be one of the great destinations for global investment when they are looking at the tech industry in terms of investment. And I believe that these are some of the key areas that the NCC is considering and what is making them to allow for flexibility in the entire regulatory framework. And I believe that this paints a positive picture for the tech industry, for the Nigerian economy over the medium to long term.
Tajudeen Ibrahim, Director, Research and Strategy, Chapel Hill Denham Securities. Thank you so much for your time and the insights.
Thank you for having me on the show.